Hey, Launch community, welcome to today's podcast. Looking forward to talking with Ethan Chernow. Ethan, it is great to connect with you. So I want to start with this, Ethan. One of the things that I am continually impressed with as I get to know you through Launch 3 specifically is how you kind of fully show up to things. You show up, you're committed, you're taking notes, you're actively listening, you're asking questions. And so I think that's a really great quality. And I think that I want to know, how that came about. Is that something that's natural? Is that something that you have worked on? How have you built that, skill set of, showing up so you can get the most out of whatever situation you're in?
No, for sure. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you guys. I feel like that's something of like the idea of like showing up has kind of been something I've had my whole life. Um, Not just doing stuff to do it, but do it to actually get something out of it. I feel like I kind of live my life in a way of like if I'm doing something, I'm not just gonna, what I just said, like I'm gonna be fully immerse myself into it. Um, like I'm always the kid in class taking notes, really trying to learn, like always kind of get that, like if this is the base learning, kind of get this out of it. Um, I played golf growing up, competitive golf. And I kind of learned, I would say around eighth grade, there's a difference between practice and good practice. Like you can go out there and hit balls for 7 hours and get nothing out of it, but like really constructed and really planned out and thought through practice or just in everyday life of just having a purpose when you're doing things. You just get so much more out of it. It's like quality notes in school is something that really I put importance to myself, and just especially during the meetings of, I mean, these people that we're talking to every week are the leaders of what they're doing, and they're successful. And I feel like for me, I learn best from learning from experiences and learning from people, who are in the position that I would like to be in. So that's just really like just really, trying to get something out of it, not just being there just to be there, but be there because I want to like learn and gain the experience and the knowledge, that I'm like as learn as much as possible. That.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
want
love
to.
it.
I thought that was awesome. And you
Yeah, that
brought
was
up
great.
golf. You brought up golf, and you're my nephew, and I know how much time and energy you put into golf, and I was really commending you for that because that's a very individual sport, right? And there's just you out there, and there's the golf course, and you're not part of a team. You really have to rely on yourself, and so I know that that the getting yourself together and the practice is very different in an individual sport than it is in a team sport. But tell me one or two things from your golf experience that have translated for you into college, something that you've taken away from that. And I know you brought up your practicing with purpose, but tell me something else.
Yeah. Something that feel like I have really started to see or maybe kind of notice is growing up at, playing golf. It's a predominantly older crowd that I'll be playing with. I was playing with you and all your friends who, when I was younger, you guys, 30 years older than me, and not having as big of a junior golf at Franklin. I was around older people all day. And I really didn't recognize how valuable that really is. Um, this year during the recruiting process for it, just in terms of talking to professors, um, being able to communicate with older individuals in a like mature and make yourself come off as this kid this like whenever you're talking to someone who's older than you, has more experience, they're kind of always going to come in, oh, this is a kid, whatever it is. but really, being able to talk to older individuals and gain their trust and really kind of interact with them in a manner that that you kind of are like they understand where your head's at. Like that's really something I've noticed this year has gone to my advantage of just sometimes when right now, like when I was in the recruiting process for the workshop, I had a lot of friends who didn't have that experience, and just in terms of like we're talking about the emails they would send some people or this, it kind of I saw like a lack of maturity or a lack of understanding of what is important in terms of communication is everything. I feel like golf really gave me the ability twofold: to talk to older individuals and gain their respect, but also it told it in terms of the emotional aspect of golf is something too that's so important for big exams. There's nothing more nerve-wracking than a big golf tournament, making that final putt. I feel like that mental aspect of golf is just so important of like, if you bad shot, you can't think about it. But no, you got to go another time. But for me, especially, it's like, I saw it's like a bad test grade. You only can, for one, you only can be so upset for so long because then you got the next exam, next week that you really got to, tell yourself that, oh, I know I know what I'm capable of, and bad test grade or bad score isn't the end of the world, and just kind of get back there for the next one. Stick to your process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
and like
that.
a golf
Those
swing,
are
I love
great.
that. Yeah, that was great. That was great. So wait, so I want to talk a little bit more about your mindset in the moment, right? So you're talking about a test grade, where the golf ball lands. I should bring you golfing with me because I can never find my golf ball. I hit them all the way to the right or all the way to the left. So. But let's kind of talk about that for a second, and David and I like to do kind of mini business courses. And so I think, a lot of people talk about mindset, a lot about people talk about being in the moment, but you have some real life examples of having to be in the moment at a very young age and having to figure out how to get back to center, and how to make the next shot, the next test, the next quiz, the next anything count. So what are 3 ways that people can do that?
And just to reiterate, in 3 ways to get back to center of like kind of put the past in the past. So this
back to center in the moment, right? In the chaos, in the moment, right?
Yeah. So this is something that I've really, really, really been working on this year for myself. School has never been really easy for me at all. I was diagnosed with a learning disability in 1st grade. I was really able to, I made school my life, 9th grade. And it was the only thing I pretty much would wake up, go to school, go home, study, go back home, and then go to sleep every single day for all high school. And I really saw success very frequently. And I kind of had my plan that was this plan. It was my plan. I would do my plan and I would get I would get an A, and it was every single exam. However, for this semester with the harder class I'm taking, my first, I would say the big thing for me, which I really, really, really was able to grasp as of staying in the moment, was my first exam grade of the year was for a business law class, which was very difficult for me just due to my learning disability and the amount of reading. I studied, I think, 24 hours probably for this exam total. And I got a 66, which was my lowest test grade I've ever gotten. And it really sucked. But it was the first time where my plan didn't work. This crazy plan that I've formulated didn't work. And when I got that grade, it kind of made me step back. And I'm like, whoa, like it really was uncomfortable. And with that, I gave myself, I feel like what's helped me tremendously is I gave myself an hour to, be upset. But I told myself, I really, the past is in the past. You can't change that exam grade. There's nothing you can do about it. So the only thing that you can do about it is the only thing that you have control over is what you do next. Am I going to sit here and complain about what I did do, or am I, or I'm going to, use this as a learning opportunity to adjust my plan, to adjust, to really, adapt to this, this very challenging class, and, kind of, get kick the next, exam's ass. That's kind of pretty much what I went to. And I feel like with that, in addition to with the amount of work I was having out in the other classes, is me being so busy, it really it didn't allow me for like this year to kind of, pout and, whine about, what a bad exam was, because I got to go study for my next exam right when I finish that one, that's this week. So I feel like you really just gotta, it's, easier said than done, but you can control you can control what you do next, but you can't control what happened in the past. Yeah. And I feel like that is just so important. It is, for me, really, really been, when I really been able to work on it and, really been able to put things in the past and just really focus on what I'm doing right now. It's been, it had a tremendous impact on my mental health and, how I approach, different challenging tasks in my life.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Sorry, David. I just want to say, I think a lot of people don't know how they learn. And I think learning disabilities, maybe because I'm dyslexic, are a gift, right? Because it forces you to figure out how you learn, right? And create a system. And sometimes it comes very naturally to people. For me, like you, not at all. But the skill set of knowing, controlling what you can control is beyond your years, because it really is it's such a great skill set. There was a book that I read and saw the movie Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. I don't know if you ever read it or saw the movie, but in it, his teacher has ALS and is dying, and he's the happiest guy in the world, Morrie. And Mitch Albom says to him one day, like, aren't you ever mad? And he said, I give myself 5 minutes every day to be mad, and that's it. And then I move on. And so it just made me think of that as you were sharing, kind of like you give yourself an hour. And in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I think should be reading for every person, he talks about scheduling that time, actually scheduling time to be pissed. So you see the start and the finish in your calendar. Mm-hmm. So I love everything you had to share, and thanks for that. That was great.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah. What I took away from it were two things. One thing is having a plan is really important. Plan your work and work your plan is extremely important. I feel I've grown to understand that and to rely on that so much more in my later life. I never really was a planner, and I wish I was in my earlier life. But being in business now, we constantly are talking about our plan. And we realize that a lot of times when we sit down and put the energy towards developing the plan and working that plan, more times than not, that plan actually turns out in the manner that we felt it should have turned out. Or if it doesn't turn out, it turned out better for us. And so just the act of going through and working that plan and putting that plan together is a very, very important act and strategy to have. Just the idea. And listen, if you put the plan together and you try to execute it and it doesn't turn out, just the idea of putting the plan together and using that as a strategy in and of itself is a game changer.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, building that plan was probably one of the hardest things I've ever accomplished in my life. I was in the LRC for half a day in all elementary school. I was in LRC, the Learning Resource Center, continued into 8th grade. I was able to test out of the LRC, and so. But I really never saw success in middle school. I worked so hard in middle school, like so harder than I feel like I put in so many hours. I saw no results. I remember I would be like grind for weeks for the exams and end up getting like a 65. And I feel like that planning period, or that when I developed my plan, was 9th grade, where I pretty much told myself what I'm doing is not working. With my learning disability, what works for me is not going to work for you. So the first trimester of freshman year of high school, I devoted it only to building my plan. I was going to X Block at 6:30 every single, whenever I was, every single opportunity I could to learn and hear different plans. And I was able to, like, I pretty much, that first trimester was a trial and error. And, I really built a plan that worked for me. And I kind of got over that humble, like, what works for me is not going to work for you. And, and that plan is, is so formulated to what my, learning styles are, and what, just the best way for me to learn and, retain that knowledge. And so I feel like was like the greatest decision of my life, because now I use that plan for every facet and every class of, I take now. And, and I feel like, what I said earlier is like being able to adapt.
Yeah.
Being able to adapt the plan is everything.
Ethan, that's what I want to talk about. So I want to talk about when you put that plan together and that plan doesn't work out the way you think it was going to work out. So what does the pivot process look like? When you put the plan together and it's just not netting you the result you thought, what does the pivot process look like? And
right.
Listen, we had a little conversation before that, so you can, entrepreneurship to real estate. What does that pivot look like?
Right. Yeah. So I feel like the pivot is, it's like a very, big part of, what my year has looked like. I came into school as an entrepreneurship. I was taking classes that were over here. Like, this is the course where I was working. Like, first semester was this. And in October, when I decided to switch, I took a complete 180. Now I'm taking courses over here. Different department in school, different professors in the school, different friends in it. And I also had to drop out of the entrepreneurship workshop, which is a whole nother thing. Is I got into the workshop for entrepreneurship, and then I had to switch all the way to now I'm recruiting for the commercial real estate workshop. I feel like the biggest thing for me, and which I find is when you make a pivot that big, that substantial, a major, complete, from this, from like black to white, it's just completely opposite. I find for me is just really kind of taking the approach of like, I'm a beginner in this field. So I got to learn everything about that. I'm a big believer in, talking to individuals who've been there, kind of done that. So I had Jeremy Berger, who was from, who was in the commercial real estate workshop. I graduated from IU. He helped me a ton, and really provided me that stuff that you wouldn't. It provided me information of like, how do I, start my networking? How do I write the emails for, best that would put me, shows, the structure they want. I feel like change is hard for everyone, but really being able to, take a step back and just tell yourself that this is new and it's, it's going to be a challenge. But if you really just take that kind of beginner approach of like, and I feel like, and most of the times, and I find that, a lot of people feel the same way who've been in the same position, who are still in that. So I feel like just taking it slow and really, not jumping to the conclusion that like, oh, like I'm so far behind in real estate in the coursework, or I'm so far behind, or I'm, but in reality, it's like just kind of step back and just kind of approach, really gain as much information you can, and not just give up, because if you give up, there's no, I feel like it's just like slowing your process down, talking to individuals who've been there, and just really trying to immerse yourself into, gain the most information to level that quote unquote gap. And usually I find that's not as big as you might think.
You're impressive, awesome. Ethan. That was great. That was great. I just, one of the things, and I see this all the time, and I'm guilty of it. I think it's something that I was not good at when I was your age. As the older I get, the better I am, is asking for help. And most people have a very difficult time. And I see it in my coaching business. I see it in general. So kudos to you for being a pace horse in that space, because it's huge. It's huge. Well done.
It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of guts to ask for help. Yeah. At any age.
Yeah.
At any age.
Yeah.
It sure does.
Yeah, and I feel like another reason why I feel like that's something I'm very good at, and I've always been very strong at, is with my learning disability as severe as it was, I really couldn't do it alone. It was really, it's impossible to think that, an individual in first grade could teach itself, or, especially in elementary school, you got to, like, you don't have the answers to everything. I feel like that's a big thing. I had tutors seemingly every single night growing up. And I feel like for me is like, I'm someone who not like to get the answer now, but if I don't know the answer to something, I'm always going to reach out to an individual who does know the answer to it. I don't like the kind of feeling like the unknown. So like, I feel like getting in the habit, like once you start asking for help, the process of like kind of getting comfortable with asking for help becomes much, much, much easier.
Yeah. Good for you.
You know what's interesting? I got a buddy of mine who played NHL hockey, and he's a very, very super person that just has a totally different persona that you would think of when you think of NHL hockey. He played 15 years. We were talking about his hockey career, and he said, Dave, it wasn't until I was 16 that I started to develop, and I could see things that were changing in my body and the way that I was seeing the game and my hockey IQ. We talked a lot about the issues that he had faced through growing up, and for the kids that it came easy to, it was interesting. Though a lot of those kids fell out of the game, quit the game. They weren't anywhere to be seen by the time they were 16, 17, and 18. The kids that it came really easy to, he had a very different experience. And it was that experience that made him be the person that was going to outwork you every single time. It didn't come very easy to him. And he was going to outwork you. And frankly, that was what contributed to his being in the NHL for 15 years and being on the Canadian Olympic team. It was those obstacles, that diversity growing up, that gave him that commitment to it. And he would outwork you. The kids that it came easy to were nowhere to be found. They dropped out and left the sport. So I really feel that your thought process as it relates to that is right on. And I know you personally, and I know that you will outwork just about anybody. And I think that and not in and of itself, but that piece of the formula is so important, Ethan. It's so important. And I think for the three of us, listen, with your issues as far as your learning disabilities, with John's dyslexia and my ADHD, school did not come easy for any of us. And so you had to figure out how to make it work for you. And my process is very different from your process, Ethan, and your process is very different from John's. But I can tell you that happened for a reason and instilled a lot of no quit in us.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Wow. It's impressive. I do want to talk a little bit more about your entrepreneurship workshop and just, what an entrepreneur is today. Because, I was talking to somebody, I was having coffee with somebody this morning, and they were talking about somebody who had an enormous business. And it was them and two assistants, where 20 years ago, it would have been a team of 20 people. And with technology today and with the resources today and entrepreneurship looks very different, with technology today, you can be anywhere in the world, you can be doing things. And so for you, E, who you're in college, you're studying entrepreneurship.
Well, he switched to commercial real estate, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
right. But you studied entrepreneurship. You're studying commercial real estate. But to me, commercial real estate, this is where my wires get crossed. When you're in commercial real estate, in many cases, you're still an entrepreneur because 100%. you in many ways, I was in this space for a long time. And when you're in it, you're in many cases an independent contractor, and you're building your own business within the business, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think, the entrepreneur of tomorrow looks like?
For sure. Yeah. And I feel like for me, I found I made the switch from real estate, from entrepreneurship to real estate after my internship.
Right.
After I kind of noticed, my biggest thing was is I looked at every single deal that I worked on in every single acquisition as a new venture. It's the diversification of tasks of, you're doing the underwriting, you're doing financials, you're doing legal, you have accounting, and that's what I love about entrepreneurship. For me, I love doing so many things. If you just told me to do one thing, I would be bored out of my mind. I couldn't even, you know what I mean? But for real estate, and I feel like entrepreneur, that's what the parallel as I saw is each deal is a new venture. You gotta, you have your offering memorandum. There's just so many parallels, and also in terms of the communication aspect of it, is really, really, there's such big parallels. But I feel like, and for me, I feel like the word entrepreneurship is thrown around. I feel like every single day. Now I feel like entrepreneurship is a very broad term now, and I feel like everyone kind of has that in them of like just creating something. I feel like an entrepreneur it's not like you're only an entrepreneur if you create a multi-million-dollar venture. I feel like an entrepreneur is someone who just creates something, has an idea, and he just is able to run it out. And I feel like entrepreneurship is in every facet of business, and people don't even think about it. And I feel like that is what it's kind of just in every business individual's kind of blood, and whether they know it or they don't.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you answered it that way, because the reason I asked the question is I think you're going to learn. What I was going to say is I think you're going to learn more about being an entrepreneur by majoring in real estate than majoring in entrepreneur, where I'm going to make an assumption right now. A lot of the teachers are talking theory of how to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
But if you're studying real estate, you're in a transaction, you're in a case study. You have to strategically think. You have to be solution oriented. You have to find all the different nuances. I was in commercial real estate for a long time. Every single deal is different. So I'm glad you switched. Well done.
John, I like how you brought that around. I didn't even see. I love how you brought that around.
Yeah.
That was beautifully crafted.
Well, I majored in economics and journalism. Took nothing out of it. Started a business out of college, and then was in commercial real estate. So, I think you made the right choice.
And I feel like another thing kind of with my choice of switching is I'm always going to have the entrepreneurship aspect in me. It's going to be in me regardless. And my end goal, end all be all goal is to, if first would be move to New York, work there for 5 to 8 years, and then move back to Detroit and start my own firm. Owning my own firm has always been it's been something, just working, growing up and, working in the manufacturing plant or working in the office or working, filling pot. I've always the idea of owning my own business has been something I've wanted since I probably 6th grade, and maybe probably even younger. So entrepreneurship always in me, but I feel like having that foundation of real estate, and I feel like once I move back and start my own firm, this entrepreneurs, kind of mindset characteristics are just going to come right into play.
Good.
You know what? I just want to go back a second, because I really like what you said about, listen, everything is entrepreneurship, right? Whether you're in commercial real estate, whether you're in pharmaceuticals, whether you own a restaurant, whatever it is. I love how you put it. Listen, it doesn't need to be a multi-billion-dollar idea for you to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are creative people that take an idea and follow it through to the end, right? And so that is a facet of just about any job that you can think of. The idea of being creative, coming up with an idea, and figuring out how to execute that idea. I thought that was very well put. Very well put.
All right.
You
ready for a speed round, E?
Let's go.
All right. one way you have tapped into your emotional intelligence, your EQ, to accelerate your growth?
I feel I'm just very like I feel like this might be not just fully, but I was been kind of someone who's kind of been moved by my emotion and the idea of just I want everything. I want it so bad. Whatever I'm doing, I want to win. Like I'm a competitive person, and I want to do I want to when people say they'll give 100%, like I always want to give 110, 15, 10% because I feel like I can always just I don't know. It's kind of that fire in me of like I just want to do great and whatever I'm doing. Like I'm not gonna half do or half ass kind of stuff. If I'm doing something, I'm going 1,000%.
It's great.
Today I'm repping Kansas Jayhawks. Who's going to win March Madness?
I think UConn.
Okay, I get that. I saw him play last night. I think you're probably about 80% right.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would give somebody who can't find their center, who can't get their mindset in alignment?
This is something I started very recently. I'm a huge believer in having a schedule. I have a schedule in my bag, like a planner, pretty much. I've stopped usually before, prior to this. I used to write down my schedule for the whole entire week, from Monday homework till Sunday homework. However, I realized that made me start thinking about the future too much, and so my new thing now is right when I wake up, or right when I get to the library to do my work, I do for one day. What's due today? What's due tomorrow? You worry about that tomorrow. What's due today? I feel like that really, really, really is helping, because when you open your planner and you see that there's 1,000 assignments to do every single day, it just puts your mind in a blender. Just saying on one day at a time, get done what you get done today, and you wake up tomorrow and you do what you got to do next. But just if you put 110% into whatever you do for that day, whatever assignment you do, that's all you can. Only so much sunlight in a day that you can do. So just whatever you kind of don't look at, I didn't get that much done. You put a lot of time into it, but you don't have all day. It's not realistic to work 24 hours. So I just feel like writing down for what is due today. What do you have to do today? And then that's just what it is.
Love it. Any last question, David?
Last question, E. You're in a tournament. You're 1 or 2 behind, par 5. Are you the kind of guy that's going to go for it in 2 with the chance there might be a chance that you lose it in the water, or are you going to lay up and try and make birdie? Are you going to go are you going to try and go for it in 2, or are you going to try and make birdie by laying up?
Am I down 2? You said down 2?
You're down 2.
This is 18?
15.
I'm going for it.
Okay, good.
You know what I decided, this season? I'm only golfing from the tips. I am not a tips player. I'm going all in. I'm going all in. That's it.
Like that.
All in. I'm going to embarrass myself. I don't care. You're an incredibly impressive guy. I appreciate your vulnerability in talking about your learning disabilities and how you have created a system that I think personally you should package, productize, and sell to other people in front of you and behind you who don't know. One of the things I find is that people have a very, very difficult time structuring themselves. And I think you've got a business in that right there as a side note. But I appreciate all your insights on mindset, on how to really kind of look at things on a micro daily level. And most importantly, you got to figure out what works for you and the power of asking for help. So thanks. I mean, I was impressed with you when we started this 35 minutes ago. I'm even more impressed and appreciative of you taking time to talk to us. So thanks so much. David, I'll let you close it up.
I love you. And your transparency, your honesty, and your vulnerability is something that is gonna allow you to go so far, so far. And I've always felt it. And I applaud your commitment, and I applaud your no quit attitude. It's something that I was never really good at growing up. I've gotten a lot better at it. You should be commended for that. I'm so thankful that you came on here with us and talked honestly. And I thought that this was spectacular. I learned so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, me
Thank
too.
you guys so much. This was great. I love doing stuff like this. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
We'd love
Of course.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I have one question for you left. One question, E. Why Launch 3? Why should somebody join Launch 3?
As someone who has been fortunate to have many, I'm fortunate to have many opportunities, growing up in terms of internships and all that. You can teach. I'm a firm believer in. I'm in business school, and this kind of sound contradicting, but you can't teach business. You can only experience business. And Launch 3 gives kids, or 18 to 26-year-olds, something that you can't find anywhere else. It's learning from people who've been there, done that, and who are the most successful. Some of the most successful people in what they do. It truly, after every single session, I'm like, wow. Like this is like, how has no one, like, this is like perfect for an individual who if you don't know what you want to do, or you really, or for a person who doesn't know what you want to do, or someone who has like a clear cut, every single meeting and session, I feel like I've gained 5-year experience, just in life, and as an individual who life, and as a stronger business person. So I feel like Launch 3 is really literally you could not find anywhere else, and it's so valuable, really truly is. And it also is giving me the opportunity for the summer. We're gonna have Bellwether, which Launch 3 is I cannot say enough good things about everything you guys have done, and I appreciate you guys for giving me and everyone else the platform, and giving all of us the opportunity.
Thanks, E.
Our pleasure, man. Our pleasure.
Have a
Thanks,
great
E.
weekend, dude.
Thank you guys.
Go
Thanks,
UConn.
everybody.